Okay, so Doc, the next thing that on our list of truths that we're trying to find out is trauma. Now, I remember my very first coach in chiropractic said that you should be aiming for anywhere from 10 to 15 traumas in some way, shape, or form. And again, the reason for that is we want to stack the reasons why they need your service. So I've got a few little tricks for you here. I always say trauma kind of comes in trauma and toxins. We'll talk about it in a little moment. So the basic question with trauma is, hey, tell me about any broken bones, falls, accidents at all ever that you've had, even if it's not related to the thing you've got coming in now. Just tell me about anything. It's all relevant for me. And just pause and let them tell you some of the stories. Now, here's the thing. And human beings typically don't tell you everything that's going on, right? Especially males. So you're going to have to dig a little bit deeper. People often are like, oh, you didn't give me anything. So I always like to say that one of the golden things that has helped me in my career is what I call did you knows, right? Now, there's one other thing I'm going to teach you, which is something called an upward inflection. So I learned this from Chris Voss, who wrote an incredible book called Never Split the Difference, right? So he was an ex-FBI negotiator, and I forget what he calls it, but he talks about this phrase where if you repeat back to the person that which they said with an upward inflection, you will often, I think he calls it mirroring, you'll often, and just pause, it often sounds so ridiculous when you say it back to someone, if it is ridiculous, that it will then go, well, I guess. So let me give you an example. Okay, tell me about any falls, broken bones, accidents, or anything you've ever had, any trauma whatsoever, falls, broken bones, car accidents, anything at all, no matter how small, it's all relevant, even if you don't think it's related to your headaches or migraines. And then you pause. If they say, no, I've never really had anything, if you repeat back to them and you say, you've never had anything, ever, pause. And sit in that silence. Trust me, they will say something along the lines of, well, I guess I've had, and they'll start listing some things off. Even when they say, your job there is to reinforce how important it is. Great job, I really need to know that. Thank you so much for letting me know that. So that's how you stack traumas. Now, a couple things I always say with traumas. My go-tos are falls, car accidents, and work. Falls, car accidents, and work. So falls, broken bones, trauma, in any way, shape, or form. If they say I've never had any fall ever, I'll repeat back. You've never ever had a fall ever. Any broken bone ever. Now, there's a brilliant stat that shows that by the age of 7, most children have had 2,500 falls, right? So I'll repeat that back to them, right? The next one is when you talk about car accidents. So they say they've never had any traumas, any broken bones, anything ever. There's like, you've never ever had a car accident, ever? Not even a fender bender? Pause. And then if you still don't get anything, you're like, because typically I'll tell you, well, I'm just so small. We were going such a low speed. And then I like to bring out what I like to call a did you know, which is, well, were you going more than 8 miles an hour or more than 5 miles an hour, depending on your research you read? And they'll normally say yes. But did you know that we can show that whiplash occurs at as low speeds as whatever the research you're reading is? I believe it's 8.2 miles an hour. Okay, so I might say, well, you're going more than 5 miles an hour, and then go through that process and go, wow, did you know? So if you had any car accidents going faster than 5 miles an hour, or whatever research you want to repeat, which is important, right? And if they say yes, then you go, oh, have you ever taken any x-rays? Now, I call this thing called this thing that I like to call differentiation. You don't have to have all the answers, but you do need to pose questions. For example, did you ever get that x-ray? Did anyone ever take pictures of that? Now, that's what I like to call dentist noise, where you just respond with a, wow, and you take notes. They will subconsciously going, wow, I didn't realize that there was something to be worried about. Now, true story about this, by the way, before someone jumps in watching this and goes, well, aren't you hyping it up? True story with my mom. My mom had never asking her the exact same questions I'm asking you in my new site, one of my new practices. She went through initial consultation, asked the same questions I'm asking right now. She said, I've never had any traumas, any challenges. We took an x-ray. She had a clear clay shoveless fracture. And when I asked her about it, I was like, Mom, what is this about? She's like, you know what? I had a cabinet fall on my head not so long ago. I'm talking about 4, 5, 6, 10 years ago. It's like, Mom, didn't you think that was an important thing to mention? They just don't think about it, right? So you have to answer those. You have to ask those questions. And the last really easy one that I want to focus on here is work. Now, everyone does a work that involves some type of trauma. Let me give you an example. If they sit at a desk all day, You know the saying, that's sitting at a desk raised than you smoking for your spine, right? Are they roofers? Are they hairdressers? Whatever there is. You want to find out, there is always trauma. If they sit at a desk all day, you've got repetitive strain injuries and or dangerous injuries that could occur because they're on a roof all day, or what do they do for work? You want to find that out, and there's always trauma. Normally one of those three will give you some type of trauma. And there's other go-tos that you've really helped with. Now this is, you have to dig a little bit deeper. Remember, you're stacking the reasons as to why they need your service. If you do not do this, it's the same as in the beginning of this consultation. Give me what else? This is another reason to justify the reason that they need your service for themselves. Selling is all about them subconsciously justifying to themselves the reason why they're able to feel good or feel okay about parting with their hard-earned cash for you. Now, the last part of trauma, or I call it trauma and toxins. Now, I start this off by asking any questions about previous treatments, right? There's just a way for me to remember it, previous treatments. And you might go, great, and what have you tried for this thing before, right? And they made a list of certain things. Now, a couple of nuances for you here. Remember, there's a bit of a crash course, but we should go deeper on this. If you want to join me going deeper on this, all you got to do is reach out to us and we'll tell you about our Conversion Alchemy course. Full course, and all the scripts and all the templates, and you must grab my book if you haven't read it already, called Conversion Alchemy. Just go to my website and get it there. So here, this part here, we want to be talking about, first of all, previous treatments, and this is going to lead to toxins in a moment, which is medication. But just a little nuance here. If you ask them what have they tried before for this problem they've had before, you want to ask them, have you tried a chiropractor before? Most people are too afraid to ask that question. Now, if they say they have used a chiropractor before and they had a bad experience, you never want to rip off or talk badly about the chiropractor. Okay, we don't want, it's never a great thing to do in any profession. But what I like to do is, whether they had a good experience or a bad experience, if they had a good experience, you want to reinforce that and say, that's awesome, your chiropractor, it sounds like he was amazing. But we always kind of want to ask a few differentiation questions. If you had a bad experience, you may want to, and they had a bad experience with chiropractic, not the chiropractor, then you really want to go deeper on what it was that perhaps they didn't get done. So, for example, if you found that they had a car accident and they were going more than 8.2 miles an hour and there was no x-ray taken, I might want to point that out. I'm not surprised. I would want to see what's happening with that x-ray. If you do something very specific in your practice like CBP or scans or x-rays and they didn't do x-rays, you want to just ask a question about that. Great, did they do any surface EMG scans where they scanned and they looked at how the nerves are functioning? Interesting. Notes. That's all we want to say. We don't want to say that what they did was good or bad. But in order for you to differentiate yourself as someone that's going to get them results, it's important that you perhaps paint some question marks around something that maybe wasn't done. That you do the thing differently, and that's why they need your service. If you're a CBP doctor, that is the truth. The truth is that they perhaps went through a treatment protocol or adjustment protocol that wasn't the best process for them. All chiropractic works. But I'll give you an example. My mother-in-law, being a long-term chiropractic patient, obviously both myself, my wife, my brother, my sister-in-law, all chiropractors, 5 first-generation chiropractors in my family, gets adjusted regularly, just had terrible radiculopathy, cervical radiculopathy, right? And one of my best friends practices really strict CBP down the road from her. And that was the only thing that eliminated her radiculopathy that she had tried at that point. We didn't do decompression or anything like that, but we went through that process. It was incredible, the results that she got through CBP protocols, strict CBP protocols. That might be a great example. If someone's not getting results, if you're a CBP doctor, you'd be like, did they do any traction exercises? What's that? Where they were able to improve the cervical curve, etc. Interesting. Did they take an x-ray? Did they draw it up? Did they tell you what your cervical curve was? Interesting. So that's what I call differentiation. Now, the next part of that is what I like to call toxins. And this gives you all the reasons again. So what medication are you on? Now, especially in the United States, most people are on, I don't know the exact statistic, but you probably know if you're watching this, a lot of medications every single day, right? So you want to find out about that. What medications you're on, and get them all. What's that for? What's that for? What's that for? So we can paint a picture again about their current health status. So to wrap up the section, we have true trauma, and we have treatment and toxins. Go through the process. Remember, the golden nuggets are falls, and then did you knows, car accidents, and then did you knows, and then work, and find out what trauma they get from work. I hope this is helpful. See you in the next one.